to tell you that it was a struggle through the first 3 quarters. With 16 points in that fourth quarter, how do you describe the confidence you had to trust yourself down the stretch?
I'm humbly one of the best basketball players in the world. Go through struggles, go through slumps. It's a long game. And, thankfully I got some great teammates that held it down. Brogdon, JB, Smart, Al. And they all trust me, right? They tell me keep taking great looks. It's going to fall. Keep impacting the game in other ways. And all that mattered was we won this game, right? Give ourselves another chance, come back home, for Game 7.
I'm hoping that it's going to be loud and it's going to be rocking. Celtics fans, y'all love to call us out, right? So I'm going to call you guys out this time. Like, energy in the Garden has been okay at best all playoffs. Game 7, if you're there or if you're not there, if you're in your home, if you're watching at a bar, if you're watching down the street at a friend's house, I don't care. I need you to be up. I need you to come with the energy because we're going to need every bit of it. No excuses. We need everybody. So I'm calling you guys out. Let's make sure the Garden is ready to go.
We stopped moving the ball, and I don't think I touched the ball the last 4 minutes of the game. Like I said, missed a lot of good looks. I didn't touch the ball at all.
Woo! I don't know if shade is being thrown there, but welcome to the show. Chris Barnett from Hoop Spaces on AMP. So happy to have you back, my friends. What's up with your squad and what's up with Joel Embiid? Was he throwing shade? Like, what was that?
Shout out to Joel Embiid. Like, I love him. If you didn't get the ball in the last 4 minutes, my man, you are Joel Embiid. You are the MVP. This is me telling you as a Sixers fan, go get the ball. It's not that hard. You're 7 foot. Like, we are behind you. You are our savior in the terms of Sixers fans. So let's do it. But the shade, I don't think is really going to Doc. It's actually going to the contributors, right? Like, if you look at what happened, the 3 main people, they went 5 for 28. James Harden, Tobias Harris, and DeAnthony Melton. You're not going to win. And you saw that. If you cannot hit 33% minimum from distance against a guard-heavy perimeter defensive team like the Celtics, you've got to pack Joel in. And they just simply didn't. And like the last thing, the first set of wins that the Sixers had, they shot well. They shot the lights out. 44% from deep, 38 and 40. Then we hit 20, 43, and 23. And what it is both Embiid and Harden aren't healthy. We all know this. And it's attrition. So I think what happens now is we go into Boston and Embiid's going to get focused. And that's why Boston actually changed and put Allen, Rob Will in Game 6, and it worked for them. Kudos. Shout out to Jason Tatum, too. Amazing fourth quarter performance. My hat to you.
Yeah, I mean, Jason
Tatum came out. And I call that his best Undertaker performance. If you're a WWE fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where he lays dead and then automatically comes out the coffin out of the blue and starts just wrestling everybody down to the ground. And so, what worked in the first 3 quarters that didn't work in the fourth quarter defensively for Philly, you think?
It's actually Marcus Smart. And it's kind of hard to understand this because we don't think of Marcus Smart as like an offensive dynamo player. But he really actually carried Boston. And what ended up happening is one of the adjustments Doc did was to have to actually get more of a team defense, collapse it, and respond to Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon. And then halfway through the third quarter, you started seeing Jason Tatum start to get loose. And he started to realize, hey, I can actually get more aggressive. And he started to get more aggressive. And then instead of settling for a 19-footer when he would go in and usually get fouled, he went in, right? He still missed the layups. But that's cool because the mindset changed. And then that's when you saw him like nail 3 after 3. And in fact, in the fourth quarter, it's the very first sequence that gets him going, where he hits that back-to-back 3. Like literally, I'm in my living room. I'm saying, that's game. There's no way the Sixers are going to come back because if you look, like we just couldn't hit any shots. And Jason Tatum realized it was his game. And then again, that's why you pay these players. And when he gets into his post game, when he says humbly, I'm one of the greatest players on earth. He's not lying. Like, where is the
he is
lie?
not.
So, like, sometimes great players, they struggle, but they shoot themselves through it, just like Kobe, just like James Harden in Game 1, just like Steph, just like Game 6 Clay, who may come out tonight, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I love that Jason Tatum said that because you don't usually hear him talk like that. So I love to hear it. I also love to hear Mark Jones talking about they smoking on that Philadelphia.
I'm sure you loved it. Like,
no, I mean,
you know
what? You know what's so funny is that I find myself in a very weird situation where I was a little happy for like James Harden having like success in the games that he did. I don't want him to beat the Celtics, but it wasn't that venom I had for him when he was an opponent of the Warriors. And so I was, he didn't beat the allegations though last night, Chris. He did not beat the allegations. So it was a closeout game. They didn't close out. They still have one more opportunity, but James Harden is going to have to show up, and help his star. But yeah, I mean, I'm really happy for Jason Tatum and the Celtics, and just, I love Jaylen Brown calling out the fans. He has this thing with the fans there, but that's right. Show up, yep. and give your team energy. So I am so looking forward to that Game 7. It's going to be amazing, but just loved what I saw on the court from them, because we thought it was over. Reese and I were on the phone and we were like, it doesn't feel like the Celtics are going to win this game. And then
it didn't. And then it just changed. Like it was literally a flip of the switch, right? It literally went from, I don't know if they're going to win this, to, okay, it's over. It's over now. And it was like a minute and something left,
It kind of built, like, if you watch the Sixers a lot, and if we win the first quarter, we're good. But the issue is we didn't, and we had to struggle to fight back. And if you actually follow the flow of the game, by the time we took the lead, that was our third surge. Like, they just gassed themselves out. And once they realized that they couldn't actually rotate on defense normally, and like PJ Tucker was basically a shell, Jason Tatum abused him, and it was good. One point on Jaylen Brown, though, like, this is my problem with Joe Mazzulla, the head coach. He's got to work Jaylen Brown in. Jaylen Brown is a really good basketball player. We can't just have him only get an X amount of shots and then disappear. That game would have been a blowout if Mazzulla worked him in better.
Well, speaking of coaching, Doc Rivers, you have a running thing going on Twitter where you tweet, Doc Rivers is a great coach. And we had the great Kevin Harlan on yesterday, who said this may be the best coaching job that Doc Rivers is doing. And then last night happened. So what is your expectation for this coach that you've been tweeting about, that, is a great coach? Because he also is not beating the allegations.
And real quick, the streets are saying, that he living off of 09. That's what they saying out here. That he's living on name only and what he did over a decade ago.
I feel you. Like, it's a complicated answer. Let me give it to you the quickest way possible. He's been coaching for 2 decades. He has one losing season that he didn't coach, more than 11 games, because he was fired in Orlando when he won 1 for 10. Like, you're not good if you don't make that, right? 20 years, 60% winning percentage, 4th most playoff wins all time. My issue is I don't necessarily agree with his coaching philosophy, right? I don't believe in the trust your players 110%, and that's the change. Like, that's why we've done better this postseason. And I think what happened last night is he started to slip in to, like, hey, James Harden's trying to get it going. Let me go ahead and let's see if we can't get him going. Let's sacrifice the motion of the offense, because if he does get going in the third quarter, at the end of the third quarter, and carries us into the fourth, that's a win. And then it didn't happen. And then you see the 76ers just plateaued, and Boston outscored them and then just ran away with the game. So in order to beat it, you're going to have to get Embiid involved. If Embiid's complaining about not getting the ball, you got to get the ball, big fella. It's your game. Yeah. That's it.
So which coach has more pressure? Because, I mean, There's Doc Rivers. There's allegations out about him. Joe Mazzulla has been criticized plenty during this series. So just tell me quickly, who has more pressure?
It's gonna sound like a cop out, but it's neither one. I actually think it's Sam Cassell. I think if the Sixers advance, we're likely to see him extend from assistant coach to head coach. But if you had to choose one, it's Joe Mazzulla. You're in Game 7 on your home floor. You've been beat there now by the 76ers. Let that happen on a Game 7, right? They loved Ime. Like half the fans didn't want to get rid of him. If you collapse on Game 7 at the Garden in Boston, you're gone. Like, it doesn't matter if you come back and win 55 games. Every Celtics fan is going to say you dropped the ball, and you don't want that. Not on your first rodeo.
Well, I'm going to tell you who else has pressure. It is the current MVP because, well, not the current, but the new MVP. I guess he is current, however you look at it. Joel Embiid. He got the MVP now. And so expectations get different. And people are looking at this and they're saying he needs to make an Eastern Conference Finals. So let's see what he does. But we have a lot going into this game. Can Harden beat the allegations? Can Doc beat the allegations? The coaching battle, and can Embiid finally get to a conference finals? Because they will hang this over his head with respect to that Jokic Embiid comparison. All right, but there is a game tonight, another game in the East, and that is.
Is it really?
Wait, I'm so ready to talk some WNBA tonight. Like, the WNBA preseason has been fire.
Definitely.
I'm here for it.
Do we really think that the Knicks are going to come out of this? Do we, guys?
I don't think so.
You know what? There's a possibility, but it requires Julius Randle to be fully engaged, Jalen Brunson to dominate, and it requires the Miami Heat not to hit shots at home. And I don't see that happening. I see Miami winning easily.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you know, it's if the Heat just show up and play like the way they have at home, they should win this game. I just don't think the Knicks have enough, but credit to them for pushing it to a Game 6. But I do think that series ends tonight. If they end up forcing a Game 7 and going back to MSG, I would be looking at Jimmy very sideways. I really would. So that's where I stand on that.
Yeah, you're right, though. I mean, obviously, he's played extremely well, like this entire playoffs, but it really feels like it does fall on his shoulders tonight for them to close this out at home, right? Like, I don't know how, if you let it go past tonight, then I just don't see how there's obviously Game 7 if they lose, but tonight is the night, right? Like, that's how I feel. It's tonight or nothing. It's all or nothing tonight.
Exactly. All right. One other thing I want to hit with you, Chris. All NBA, the teams came out a few days ago. And I think one of the biggest stories coming out of that was that Ja Morant did not make an all NBA team, and that had contract implications, right? So Ja Morant lost out on, what was it, like $39 million? Because of not, if you call it a snub, and it is a snub from the standpoint of you can't really look at the other people who made it and say like he doesn't belong on the all NBA team. But in this case, it's clear that the media, the voters, held what his off-court activity and all the stuff that he got into against him. And I don't know that they should be taking that into account, you know, when you're considering all NBA teams. So what do you think about that?
Let me ask you in this way. What is leadership in an organization, in a franchise in the NBA? And you come down to the fact that it's a trika, right? You got your GM or president of player operations, you have your coach, and then you have your main superstar, right? If you can't have your main superstar locked in and be a leader because something off the court happened, that impacts the actual on-court production. So is it a easy way to say, well, let's not get him in here because he did something that we don't agree with? Sure, but it can also be a legitimate argument saying, hey, What you did here was that immature, that it affected the product on the floor. And that is the penalty. And like, to be honest, even if he didn't do it, he probably he's not getting in anyway. Like Trae Young is 30 and 10, providing the same stats, if not more, than John Morant. Or how about this? Anthony Edwards didn't make it.
No, let's not do that. The Grizzlies, and y'all know I'm not even a Ja fan. The Grizzlies were the number 2 seed. They were the number 2 seed in the West. There is no argument that Trae Young or Ant Edwards, who all way down in the standings, have any argument over him. And honestly, to be candid, the idea that even the people who did make first team, Luka, who did not even see the play-in game, much more the playoffs, or that SGA, that Shea made first team, like, I think we're moving away from NBA and like winning mattering. Like these guys on losing teams, or that you're not seeing right now in the postseason being first team, that's concerning to me. And like, I get that like someone like Steph Curry, they penalized him for games played, but in terms of win percentage of when he was on the court, he has a higher win percentage than Luka, than Luka did in the games he played in. So I think it's really nasty that those two were first team. I think that they should have been on it, but you put them in at like a third team, like the way Dame is. Like, you don't put like those players over a Steph, over a Donovan Mitchell, over a Ja Morant, over players who are winning and their teams are higher in the standings, in my opinion. So, we'll see. And there's a number of players too. I'm sorry. There's a number of players. Go ahead.
I agree. I had SGA on second team. Like, I agree. The Luka part, the production just puts him there. He just outproduced literally everybody not named Nikola Jokic and Jason Tatum this season. You just can't deny it.
No, he should be second team, but he should not be first team. His production fell off the second half of the year. They went on that losing streak. And normally the voters are very, what have you done for me lately? But they didn't do that like the way they do with everyone else. When you fall off at the end of the season, it usually dings you. And it didn't. But I mean, there's just, to me, no justification for him being first team, but he should have been on an all NBA team. So we won't agree on this one. But there's going to be a lot of changes next year. And a lot of the players who made it this year wouldn't even make it based on their games played, right? Yep. So it should be interesting to see, but we won't see things that are offensive anymore, like Jokic on second team because of position. So that is a good change. But look at this. Jimmy, Giannis, Dame, Steph, LeBron, none would be on an all NBA team this year based on that 65 games played threshold. So I don't know.
It's a good legislative way to end, the idea of resting your stars, right? Like, that's really all it is about when the new CBA comes out, is the load management aspect. You want 65 games on your stars so they can play 75% of the games and get the gate in here. I've got zero, as a paying fan, I got zero problem with it. If I'm going to go spend $300 to take my son to a Pacers game, like, I better see LeBron James play. Like, that's in my mentality. That's what I'm paying for. And even if I love the game of basketball, which I do, and I'll still go if I can afford it, if he's not playing, like, that changes the entire experience as a fan. So the idea of getting in 65 games, although a lot of players might kind of grumble about it, like, you're getting kind of catered to in the aspect that you don't practice all the time, yet you say you want to practice all the time. You don't have the same travel issues that players before your generation had. If you walk into the training facility, it's literally like going into a walking mall with a great gym, trainers, massage and treatment, and everything. So give us 65 games as a fan, and we will never not back you. We might be mad at you, but come on.
No, I still don't agree with the 60 game threshold, to be candid. I think 65 is a little bit high. I think that because you have players missing it by like 2 or 3 games, like 62, 61 games. And a lot of these players are not missing because of load management. They're missing it because of legit injuries. Like, that's why they're missing games, right? So it's one thing when you're Kawhi Leonard and you're just missing games. It's another thing when you're missing it for an injury. And it's also another thing because we use these awards for legacy discussions and for rating and ranking players. And so you're not going to get an award when you were clearly the better and had the best player and had the better season. season. So I think they're going to have to tweak that number at some point.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.